Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. You joined me here in the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander Platinum Hybrid Max powertrain. And like I've said in my other video on this particular vehicle, I am very excited to give you my driving impressions and overall review of this vehicle over the last week or so, as I've been waiting quite a while to get my hands on it from its introduction for the 2023 Chicago Auto Show, where I did attend the grand reveal of this vehicle. And a couple weeks ago, I did have the 2024 Lexus TX 350, which has the standard 2.4 liter turbocharged, where the Hybrid Max, of course, adds the hybrid system, also paired to the 2.4 liter turbo, with significant improvements in the performance department, which kind of hindered my overall impressions of the Lexus a little bit, where here in this particular vehicle, I think I have totally different thoughts on it. Go ahead and give her a little sendy send. Had traction control kick in there, and we're already well over 60. So yeah, as you can tell by my facial reaction, the Hybrid Max powertrain puts out 362 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque between that 2.4 liter turbo, and of course the two electric motors in this setup, one between the engine and transmission, the other one at the rear axle for a dedicated full-time all-wheel drive system, which makes this vehicle quite incredible to drive, I have to say. It is quite impressive, the performance that you get from the Hybrid Max powertrain, which of course is also available in the Lexus TX. Now, as usual, starting out with my visibility here with the Grand Highlander, it's very similar to that of the Lexus TX. There's a very commanding viewpoint of the roadway. You do see quite a bit of the hood, I have to say, with this vehicle, given the hood line is fairly flat. So you do see quite a bit of the hood in front of you, but I will say you sit up quite high, so you still have excellent visibility over the roadway. Of course, side visibility is great with the very large side mirrors that are door mounted, so you have a little bit of additional glass space between the mirror and the A-pillar to see out either the driver's side or of course the passenger side. And then you have the blind spot detection, of course, and great visibility over your left and right hand shoulders with the large side glass and especially large third row pieces of glass, which just enhance your passenger side visibility even further. So in terms of visibility, I really don't have any major complaints inside of the Grand Highlander, which really I didn't inside of the Lexus TX either. Now, transitioning here onto the interior, ergonomics, technology, everything like that, I guess we'll go ahead and start with the ergonomics materials. This color combination that I'm sitting in, I believe, is unique to the Platinum trim in specific. This is the cloud gray exterior with this brown two-tone leather and suede interior. It is very nice, and I think it suits the Platinum trim or just the overall aesthetics quite well. And then of course you do have the darker gold accents that go with this trim level around the shift knob, across the dashboard and everything. I really do think the cosmetic side of things, the Grand Highlander does quite well. We'll go ahead and do another little acceleration here. And my foot's down maybe 50% on the throttle, and this thing just has effortless acceleration. It's quite enjoyable to drive for a vehicle of this weight and size. Now, anyways, moving on to ergonomics, the overall cabin layout is going to be very similar to the Lexus TX that I did a few weeks ago. You do have a little bit different of a infotainment screen with fully physical buttons and knobs for the dual zone climate control in the front, your heated ventilated seats, everything like that are totally separated away from the 12.3-inch infotainment screen, which sit right above it. You still have a volume knob, which is good, and I've used that quite a lot. And the rest of the cabin has mostly physical buttons and controls, which I really do appreciate, and I think a lot of buyers and shoppers out there are looking for those controls on a daily basis. And of course, they all integrate extremely well with the heads-up display here on the Platinum and the fully digital instrument cluster, which you can of course control on the steering wheel. And you do have 3 programmable pages. I go into that a little bit more detail in a separate dedicated video going through the technology here in the Grand Highlander, so make sure you guys check that one if you're interested about the digital cluster or the infotainment system and anything like that. But materials, very good. There's a good amount of space here in the driver's seat between the center console and the door panel. Now, I will say my knee has been resting quite a lot on the padding for the center console here on the, I guess, my right side. So I would say that is the one dimension here in the front seat that does kind of somewhat feel cramped on the interior, but my left here near the driver's side door panel hasn't had an issue. But I would say if you're a little bit on the taller side of things, or a little bit maybe more long-legged, that you will often find your knee resting up here on the leather-wrapped center console, which, if that material wasn't there, might be a little bit less comfortable in that regard. So that's the one interior kind of dimensional complaint I have here in the front seat of the Grand Highlander. But outside of that, you know, I really do think the interior suits this price point and category of vehicle quite well. As you can see, we're cruising in deceleration here in all electric mode, as of course this vehicle is a hybrid. So we're going about 30 miles an hour, maintaining speed in full electricity. And I do like the fact that you can have a display on the instrument cluster that actually shows you how much percentage of your current drive or driving overall has been done in fully electric. I think that is a very cool statistic to have up on your digital cluster. Now, of course, we are coming up here to my section of rougher pavement, where I like to discuss the ride and handling dynamics. And I think the Grand Highlander here with the 20-inch wheels on this particular unit rides very nicely for a mid-size kind of family SUV. Soaks up the bumps, absolutely feels very isolated. And I think that is actually one of the stronger suits, much like that of the Lexus TX that I had, that it's just a very comfortable ride, feels fairly solid here on the interior. The only aspect that I've encountered in this particular vehicle that's a little bit unsettling is the fact that the panoramic sunroof does creak and rattle from time to time, depending on how rough the pavement actually is and how much of the chassis you're actually flexing. I specifically noticed it on steep entrances and exits from either a driveway to a business or something like that, where you're really getting the chassis to flex. But outside of that, the interior has been fairly solid. A little bit of rattles coming from the door panels when the stereo system is hitting certain bass notes, but outside of that, everything else has been very well put together, and I've had no major complaints. Now, once again, cruising in full electricity here at about 23-24 miles an hour. Makes the interior cabin quite quiet, or even quieter than that when the engine is on, and of course it is powered by both the gasoline and electricity. Now, I guess speaking of gasoline and electricity, my overall fuel economy for the last 5 to 6 days or so has been about 22 to 23 mpg, and that has been mostly city type of driving. And I would say I have somewhat of a heavy foot, specifically in this particular vehicle, because it's quite enjoyable to use the full power output from the Turbo 4 and the hybrid powertrain. This vehicle is rated at 26 mpg city, 27 mpg out on the highway. So I would say, you know, I'm pretty close to the EPA figures, and even if I wasn't quite meeting them in the mid to upper 20 mpg range, I would still say 23 mpg is quite acceptable for a vehicle of this size that is a hybrid, has the aerodynamic properties that this vehicle does. So I've been pretty impressed getting 23 mpg, which is about a 3 to 4 mpg net gain over that of the Lexus TX with only the 2.4 liter turbo, which can also be had in the Grand Highlander and some of the lesser trim levels without the hybrid or hybrid max powertrain. But I would say the hybrid max is certainly the one that I would opt for if I were in the market for a vehicle like this. Now, moving on to some of the other aspects about this vehicle, the feature set is absolutely great. This one being the Platinum trim level, comes fully loaded with everything that the Grand Highlander currently has to offer. Heated and ventilated first and second row seats, heated steering wheel, of course, Toyota Safety Sense 3.0 with adaptive cruise control, blind spot detection, lane tracing assist, and everything like that as far as that goes. All the technology works fantastic. I have had a little bit of intermittent issues for wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay with my Pixel 7 Pro. So far, it's been working the later half of the week seamlessly, automatically connecting, but it does seem hit or miss as to whether or not I will have to manually hit connect to actually activate wireless Android Auto, or for the system to recognize that my phone is back inside the vehicle after the head unit or just vehicle has been restarted. So that's a little bit concerning. This is actually the first Toyota or Lexus product with this new latest generation technology that I have had a problem with. So I guess it might just be this particular vehicle, but I would wish that would be a little bit more solid, like all the other Toyota Lexus vehicles that I have been behind the wheel with for a period of time. Now, in terms of those features and technologies that I was mentioning, I think the overall feature set is quite good, once again, for a fully loaded Grand Highlander. But like I mentioned in my dedicated likes and dislikes video, there are a handful of things that I think this vehicle really should have for the price point and segment of vehicle, including an auto-dimming side rear view mirror, as well as some power availability of the seats, either for the second and or third row. I really think the third row in particular should be a power up-down adjustment like the Lexus TX I had with the luxury package, because this vehicle is priced at $60,000 as seen, and a lot of vehicles in this segment at least have the option for a power up-down third row in their very top trim levels, and unfortunately that is not the case for the Grand Highlander. So do keep that in mind, as you're going to have full manual mechanisms for the folding functionality, the release to gain access to the third row seats, and to fold the second row seats down, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's a good thing for reliability, maybe a little bit of additional weight savings. Cost might be a factor as well. They may need to keep the cost down inside this vehicle. So there might be a plethora of reasons as to why Toyota did that. But I still think that people would appreciate that for the option to have it either here on the touchscreen or to release the second or third row seats from the cargo area, which is extremely expansive, and I will touch on that here a little bit later. Now, turning out onto the interstate, we're going ahead and touch on some of the driver assistance technologies, which of course I do very much enjoy here in Toyota Lexus recent products. Oh man, this thing scoots. Oh, there's quite a bit of body roll, but again, to be expected. And putting the power down, oh, I mean, absolutely effortless acceleration up to about 80 miles an hour. Anyways, activating cruise control, simply push of a button. You have nice controls on the right side to adjust your actual set speed, and of course the distance for the adaptive cruise control and lane tracing assist. And it's maintaining center of the lane, no issues. We do have a vehicle in front of us, and it is reminding me to take control of the steering wheel. One thing that I mentioned again in my likes and dislikes is the eye tracking or eye monitoring device here in the middle of the steering wheel. Just like that of the Lexus TX, I absolutely really am not a fan of it. It's very, very sensitive, which is a good thing when you're out on the highway cruising like this, to have a sensitive thing to make sure that you are paying attention and aren't distracted while you're driving. But around town, it was really, really sensitive to the point where I was adjusting something on the infotainment system, using the climate controls, simply looking out the window to my left, and it would immediately pop up here on the digital cluster saying, pay attention, sit up, you know, just nagging you, reminding you to pay attention. And sometimes even I was just paying attention just like this, and I don't know if it's the polarized sunglasses that I'm wearing or what, but it would basically tell me to sit up, and I'm, you know, in my normal driving position. So outside of that, I think Toyota's safety sense and driver assistance technologies are very, very good, and cruising out on the interstate is a very pleasurable experience. It's very quiet on the inside and would make a great road trip machine for a family, say, you know, 4 or 5 people inside of here. I think it would just absolutely make for a very pleasurable experience, especially given the amount of legroom and just overall passenger volume in the second and third rows. And speaking of that overall available space here inside of the cabin, during my week with this vehicle, I am actually moving into a new house, and I managed to fit a 72-inch by roughly 30-inch by roughly 25-inch office desk inside of the Grand Highlander with the third and second row seats folded down, and it absolutely handled it with ease. There was plenty of additional space outside of the desk when it sits in here, and I'll go ahead and overlay some pictures up on the screen. So I really think that is also another strong suit of this platform and size of vehicle, is just the amount of cargo volume you have in all dimensions. And I was really impressed with the hauling capabilities and the amount of stuff that you can actually fit in behind the first row seats of the Grand Highlander. So that's another benefit, I guess, to a vehicle like this, and might be one of the best options if you're wanting to shy away from the traditional minivan to get something more on an SUV shape like this. Now, before we go ahead and wrap up this review, I do want to give you my thoughts and comparisons between the Hybrid Max powertrain and the standard 2.4 liter turbo that I experienced in the Lexus TX. Now, like I mentioned a little bit earlier in this video, obviously this one is going to be the much more powerful than that of the standard 2.4 liter turbo, but I don't think this one is necessarily the right choice for every buyer of either the Grand Highlander or the TX. I think the 2.4 liter turbo is adequate for a vehicle of this size and weight. It certainly is very, very comparable to either the other competition that have a 4-cylinder turbo or some of the last vehicles out there with naturally aspirated V6 engines. I would say it just comes down to personal preference and which one you prefer to drive on a daily basis. It does have the 8-speed automatic transmission, which is very eager to downshift, and I had no complaints with the transmission performance. But I would say overall power output is just enough for a day-to-day basis in a vehicle of this size and, just weight, aerodynamic properties, etc. Now, when it comes to the Hybrid Max that I'm currently driving, I think this is the one that I would personally choose just for the additional performance benefit, and you are gaining a little bit of additional fuel efficiency as well, although a comparable Hybrid Max to a standard 2.4 liter turbo is going to be just over $5,000 more of a price premium, which to me, I would say is about worth it in a vehicle like this. But if you don't need to prioritize acceleration and maybe don't need to prioritize fuel economy, then I would say stick to the standard 2.4 liter turbo here in the Grand Highlander or the Lexus TX. Now, what's interesting and what is kind of an oddball powertrain is the regular hybrid with the Grand Highlander, and that is a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder paired to a single electric motor between the engine and the transmission. That, I believe, is the most fuel-efficient option in the Grand Highlander. It is a little bit less powerful in terms of horsepower and torque versus the turbo engine, but does net you a little bit of additional fuel economy. So I guess if fuel economy is your prioritization and you really don't care about overall acceleration and performance, then that is probably the instance where I would recommend the standard hybrid. But the Hybrid Max is still a very, very compelling option. Yeah, I think that's pretty much going to do it here for my driving review and overall impressions of the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander Platinum Hybrid Max trim level. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, the performance is absolutely fantastic. Fuel economy seems pretty reasonable as well. Technology works great. It's just missing a couple small items that if Toyota would add into this vehicle, keep the price point in check, that I think would make a winner in my book for it. But of course, if you do want many of those features, such as the dimming side mirror and the power up-down third row seats, of course, the Lexus TX will offer that on some of the trim levels. So you might want to look at that route, but of course, that vehicle is going to be actually significantly more money than this one that I'm actually driving, which comes in right at $60,000. So if you guys enjoyed this video and or found it helpful, make sure to hit that like button below. It greatly helps out the channel, these videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out some other content I have here on either the Lexus TX or the Grand Highlander. And I just want to give a huge thanks to Toyota for sending this vehicle out for me to test and review. Yeah, overall, I think it's a great choice. I would highly recommend checking one out if you guys are in the market for a midsize 3-row SUV. I think it's extremely comfortable, has tons of space, good technology. There's really not a ton to dislike about this vehicle overall. So yeah, it'll be definitely one of my top picks, I think, in this segment. And it'll be interesting to see what some of the competition does over the next couple of years, as there are some all-new entrants into this segment, but there's certainly some older ones that are due for an all-new redesign here in the next 1 to 2 years or so. And I'm sure they're going to be benchmarking the Grand Highlander if I had to guess. So let me know what you guys think of the Grand Highlander down in the comment section below. As always, I appreciate the continued support and hope to see you guys in the next one.